righty, welcome to the Creedcast. It is Thursday, the 13th of August, which means it is squad show time, and it is an intense time of year for us doing this show because it means with AFLW coming up this weekend, as well as obviously AFL men's still ongoing, it means it's a packed show tonight to get through both. The men have somewhat maybe done us a favour in the season petering out as it is, that we won't need to spend too much time on them because we are going to spend the predominant amount of time on this evening's episode on the women's side upcoming with their first game of the season this Sunday. But we will start with the men's side first, but before we do that, I will just introduce the talent of the podcast. As always, Jamie's on call and ready to go and chat footy tonight. Good evening, mate.
Catchphrase. Good evening to you, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to those who are tuning in to the Creedcast, wherever you may be tuning in from, whatever your proclivities may be. I'm happy to be here. I'm sure you're happy to be here. We have a little preview, and then we have a delectable, larger preview because our women get underway. So I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely, yeah. Delectable is the right wording. We're really chomping at the bit to get into the women's season with this talented side that we've got in front of us, and obviously I'm really excited to get to next week when we get to go to Albert and to watch them again in person, them of course being away this weekend. But we'll get to them in a little bit here, but first of all we will start with the men's side, who do play Melbourne at 7:40 p.m. on Saturday night. A nice late one, which is shaping up very nicely for the fans' side of the fence, for us wanting to enjoy some beers in the depths of the last men's home game of the season. So I'm looking forward to it. But 7:40 p.m. Saturday evening at Adelaide Oval, of course. So get down there. I know the season is petering out a little bit and Melbourne are strong favourites, but there is some reasons for celebration. I think it's worth noting first, of course, some stalwarts of the club, those names that often don't get read out, obviously don't get read out in team sheets or put up in lights week to week like players do. And we'll certainly talk about a couple of players here in a moment. But Alfie Trebilcock, who's been there for since Ebert started at the club, and Bob O'Malley as well, who's been there, I think it's a 70 plus years of combined time at the club for those two, working in the boot room, so to speak. And they're names that if you've been a Port Adelaide fan for a while, you've seen them, heard the stories a little bit, and they pop up periodically. But they've been celebrated a fair bit in Port Adelaide media this week, of course, because they're ending their time with the club professionally this week, this season. They're obviously, there's been a bit of talk about them being welcome back at any time. I think Alfie's talked about the fact that he just won't be going near a pair of boots, but otherwise he'll be happy to come back to the club, which is fair enough after the time he spent at the club. But one of the things that makes our club so special is that kind of connection to those names that, you, like I said, aren't usually up in lights, but everyone at the club knows them, respects them, loves them, and appreciates and understands the integral role they play, both in what they do, but then kind of just as a cultural part of the club as well. What they do is, that connective tissue and makes a club more than, say a franchise or whatnot. This is the stuff that makes it rooted in the very, very fruitful soils of Alberton and the greater Port Adelaide area. It's what makes us so rooted and tied to that area is the people like this that come through the club. And it's wonderful that they're going to get celebrated and have their names up in lights for a weekend this weekend.
I totally agree. Fabric of the football club type of stuff. And for anyone associated with sporting clubs, whatever sport they may be, or encompassing a few different sports, how important even footy clubs, which are probably on the more profitable end of local sport, community sport, but even still, you understand the value of volunteers and people willing to give up their own time to support the club that they love and that you love if you're associated with that club, of course. I know, coming from a cricketing point of view, it's not very profitable community sport, and it's run basically across the board at community level through volunteers outside of some of the larger clubs in that regard. So I, of course, know the value of people willing to put their hand up and not expecting anything in return, apart from the respect in doing whatever tasks they are doing. And Alfie and Bob are no different to that in a Port Adelaide Football Club sense. You know, Alfie in particular is basically like furniture around the place. And Bob, of course, it's not to devalue Bob's contributions or whatnot. Alfie, like you said, though, has been there since Russell Ebert's, was it, first game?
Yeah.
So, but PTV or the Port Adelaide social team, maybe even before, like the hyper emergence of social media, but PTV, I know you'll remember PTV. It used to be the video.
That PTV intro on YouTube is still like a core memory.
I kind of get chills. I just got goosebumps thinking about it. But I think about being a young man, a teenager, growing up and watching those PTV videos, and it was around the kind of one club time and the burgeoning of the We Are Port Adelaide movement, and they used to do a lot of historical snippets, which was really helpful for me. I was born in 1991, so I was oblivious to all of the success, or I wasn't even around to all of this success. So those videos were really a good kind of entry point into learning and broadening my knowledge about the football club that I was beginning to love at a young age, and then grew to love as I grew up and went to the footy with my old man. But I remember one with Alfie in it, and he was just talking about his journey with the football club and being a boot stutter and telling the stories about how they used to have knock-in sprigs and before screw-in sprigs, and telling the story about Max James and how he said that Alfie hadn't, sprigged his boots up properly or, got his boots ready. And Alfie said he took them away at half time. He did nothing to them, but told Max James that he'd fixed them up for him. And Max James played a fantastic second half, and, just goes to show that footy's all in the mind. But the way that Alfie spoke about his time with the club and about the Port Adelaide Football Club, and then when he was entered into the Port Adelaide Football Club Hall of Fame, just the way that he speaks about the football club, it embodies a lot of what I feel about the football club. And I haven't obviously had, apart from being a member for roughly 17 years, that's my extent of my contributions to the club. But just the way he spoke about Port Adelaide and how he felt on those occasions in the video and at the Hall of Fame, it just made me very proud to have those types of people involved with the club. Obviously, Bob O'Malley is a bit more in the background and known to the players and staff and that. But yeah, I felt privileged as a fan to have that insight to someone who isn't just recounting the same kind of stories that you would hear from staffers, administrators and players, coaches and that type of thing. It was just a Port Adelaide fan who's spent a lot of his time at the football club. He's proud of the football club. He loves the football club, and now he gets to enjoy retirement from his volunteer job as a boot stutter, and just gets to be a fan for the rest of his life. And I think it's great that those guys are platformed and aren't hidden away and are allowed to tell the story of the Port Adelaide when it broadens the tapestry of the Port Adelaide Football Club, having those people around, but also being cognizant of those people that involve themselves with our beloved football club.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, very well said. It's and that's why it's so wonderful that we do get this moment to celebrate them, because it's not only kind of like the prison bars or anything like that. These kind of moments allow us a chance to, you and I are very, very cognizant and see the import of the history of the club. But for fans that are younger fans that do not didn't grow up with PTV or anything prior to that, these kind of moments might be the first time that they, like, similar to the anecdote I told about a younger colleague of mine at work when the Invincibles Guernsey came up in the showdown week, and he said that was the first time he'd had an access point to that point of history because it just hadn't been fed to him through the algorithms or anything before, and he's found it really interesting. In a similar way, there could be those young fans like him that didn't know these names or anything about it, or just the kind of role that some of these unsung heroes play at the club. So again, this is just a wonderful moment to platform them and get to celebrate them this weekend, which is one reason to get down to the Oval this weekend at 7:40 p.m. On Saturday evening. Well, actually before that, because they will be celebrated prior to the first ball up of the game. So yeah, get down there for that. This is like a throwback to episodes a few weeks ago. I want to say throw up. I don't know why. Maybe it's because Port Adelaide men's football is starting to make me feel like doing that. Although maybe it was the Jaeger bombs after the game. Jaeger bombs,
exactly.
Jaeger bombs and 11 p.m. kebabs in Sydney. No, they saved my life, actually, the 11 p.m. kebabs. But yes, we do have a game, of course, at 7:40 p.m. On Saturday evening after we celebrate those wonderful stalwarts of our club. And there is more celebration to come in the players on the field as well, of course. You did just inform. I hadn't realised it, and I do want to acknowledge it because we love Joe Richards, and he's playing his 50th game. But more importantly, I think, as far as just longevity in sport and longevity and being a champion of the Port Adelaide Football Club, and I think someone who should be celebrated as one of the true greats of our football club, in Aliir Aliir playing game 200. Obviously, what he means beyond just football and just the fact that he just is a great club man, it's obviously his South Sudanese roots, the journey to becoming an AFL footballer, a lot of good multicultural cup stuff coming up again this week, and talking about the importance of that we celebrated a couple of weeks ago, but just the importance of Port Adelaide as a club that embraces and celebrates multiculturalism in this country. It is not monoculturalism, and it never will be. It's multiculturalism. Shout out to the students protesting today. But Aliir Aliir is kind of a champion of that idea, and he just goes about things with such humility, but grace, a great cheeky smile, and also is absolutely a champion footballer. By the way, as I lead you into saying your piece in Aliir, did you see there's a piece that Port Adelaide Instagram social media released about an hour or so ago of the social media content creator going around asking people, tell us something we don't know about Aliir Aliir, and like Kane Farrell goes, he takes every second Monday off. I don't know why. Alfie Trebilcock goes, he just takes sickies with his kids. And then like another person talked about him, his random days off. And then Aliir at the end just goes, I've been stitched up a little bit, but yeah, sometimes the kids are sick. And I'm like, so this guy takes just days off all the time and is still just like a champion player. Like that actually makes it more impressive to me. So yeah, Aliir Aliir, I think, is just absolutely one of my favourite Port players ever. Like that's how much I adore him. I know he's been here 6 years, but it feels like his impact on us has been like a decade plus. That's how great he's been, how reliable he's been, 100% game time every week. Is shouldering a fair load across the last couple of years in particular, and just a champion player that one should absolutely be regarded as one of the greats of the Port Adelaide, and particularly a great Port Adelaide defender.
I think if you're doing a Port Adelaide team of the century now, or team of the 21st century so far, Aliir would have great claims to be included in that team, such as the impact that he has had on the club and just the unique role that he's embedded and perfected in the football club. All of us people who have children know the benefits that it does come with of occasionally using them as reasons to take the odd sick day off every now and again. In saying that, though, young children do tend to get sick a fair bit while their immune systems develop. So, that was funny. It's something that definitely rings true for myself, having a nearly 1 and nearly 5 year olds in my household. But yeah, that is funny. I didn't get to see that clip, so when you said it, it was the first time hearing about it, which is quite funny. But No, obviously, yeah. Appreciate having Aliir Aliir at our club. Like you mentioned, having to shoulder a heavy load over the last couple of years, and maybe for the last 2 to 3 years, excluding this year, but the year or two before this year, also doing a lot, seemingly hampered. You would speak about the Aliir Aliir limp over the last couple of years that thankfully hasn't been prevalent this year. Touchwood, he gets to play out the last 2 games without any worries. But as well as that is just from a Port Adelaide perspective, not entirely knowing what we were going to get when we recruited him. And I can't even remember my thoughts. I was cognizant of the fact that Sydney were kind of shifting him around and he hadn't really bed down a spot in their setup. And whether that was his fault or the coach at the time or the coaching setup, I'm not sure, but that was the case, and it was part of the reason why he was attracted to come to Port Adelaide was the fact that, Ken CD at the time sold the fact that he would be put down in one spot where he was keen to play, and we all know how that 2021 season went. Can't get much better than that. First up at a new club, and I desperately hope he gets the plaudits from a all-Australian point of view that like he did in that season. Regardless of how I felt at the time, I more than love him now and the contributions that he makes to our football side, and our football side is always better with an Aliir Aliir in it, such as the way that he goes about it, and happy to have him as a leader in our setup now, as he has become a bit more on an official, not official basis this year in particular, but over the last couple of years.
Yeah. I think a friend of the pod / friend of mine, I've known him for 20 years, Ollie, who's a Port Adelaide fan as well. So shout out Ollie if you're listening. Just randomly sent a message through of the Aliir 200 thing today, and I just replied back and said, yep, 200 beers to celebrate 200 for Aliir. So that's my plan on Saturday evening. To segue into Saturday evening, you might need 200 beers, but we'll see how we go. We won't spend too much time here because it is just play before the season ends, and we do it for Dougie. But the facts of the game are that Melbourne have no wins or out, so they go in unchanged from one of the more epic games of the year, and their win over Fremantle last week. It was a great game to watch. I caught the first half live before I ventured to the SCG for the game. So no changes for them, which must be nice. We have Darcy Byrne-Jones, of course, out due to suspension. Will Lorenz, Jackson Mead and Christian Moraes have all been omitted for the inclusions of Joe Richards, Lockie Jones, Mitch Georgiades and Xavier Bamment. So good ins for us. Obviously, only one of those are forced change. The rest are obviously bringing in some good talent for those that are lesser currently. For some of them, I have high hopes for a couple of them, but one of them maybe. But yeah. A game that sees, just if you look at Wheelo ratings quickly, Melbourne have the pretty much dominance in the attacking stats, us having still holding some pretty good defensive stats, though they have been hurt a little bit over the last few weeks. But ultimately, Wheelo ratings believes an 81.9% chance of a Melbourne 5-goal win, roughly. So, Jamie, how are we feeling about this one? Don't have to spend too much time on it, but I assume you're probably similar to me that I hope maybe just the Wheeler ratings prediction is like, I'd just be happy with that. If we lose by 5, then it's probably a lot better than last week.
Absolutely, it's better. I overall echo my sentiments at the back end of the Sydney review. I just want, for our last home game of the season, I just want them to give a good account of themselves and the football club, represent the football club proudly, particularly in Aliir's 200th game, which is a little extra source of motivation. I don't have high hopes. I mentioned also in the review that I watched the Melbourne Fremantle game, one of the games of the season, if not the game of the season, and one of the more enjoyable games over the last couple of years that I've watched as a neutral, particularly. So they're coming in red hot. full of form, full of confidence. Funnily enough, though, as Wheelo predicts, a lower margin, and where Wheelo's ratings for attack and defence was basically all skewed in Sydney's favour coming up against them last weekend. We kind of roll back into a similar theme that in a lot of our matchups, it's where our opposition pip us for attacking statistics, so things like total points, points from turnover, chain to score percentage inside 50s, things like that. But we're actually on the more favourable side defensively. So it will be interesting in conjunction with the ins to see if we can maintain a more solid structure than we did against Sydney. Again, being at home as well should be more comfortable. Melbourne used to a wider expanse at the MCG, and I think that may have helped them in their matchup against Fremantle too. So it will be interesting to see how they adjust. But we're seriously coming up against a solid football side who's got a good age profile. It's got a good games played profile. They've still got their healthy mix of premiership players, most notably Max Gawn, Jake Lever, Christian Salem. Keziah Pickett is in red hot form. Langdon, Bailey Fritsch. So having, I truly think having that kind of core nucleus has helped them along this year in totality. But then they've got their rising stars in Caleb Windsor, who I rate really highly. Is it Kyle Langford? For Melbourne
Langford,
as well. I think Harvey Langford.
Kyle Langford's
there's plenty of Langfords. yes. Sorry. I should just bring up the team, shouldn't I? I'm looking at Wheelo over here.
A little anecdote. I've done this twice when selling cards, as I do on eBay periodically with my card collecting. I think I've listed a Levi Ashcroft card as Will Ashcroft once, and I think I've done the Harvey Langford, Kyle Langford one because I have sold cards of both of them as well. So, understandable mistake on your end because I've done it in professional settings of eBay selling. So,
yeah. Basically, here to say that they've got a good balance, a good game plan, obviously, and they're in red hot form. So it's going to be very interesting how we come up against them. The ins, I couldn't be more happy to recall those players. It's nice amid our injury crisis to bring in such a talented four. And then obviously Jason Horne-Francis has passed his test thus far. There is still room for a late change, but touch wood, that doesn't happen. So, yeah, look, I could reiterate what I've said over the last couple of weeks, but I'm sure people who regularly listen to the preview would know what I'm on about. Play hard, win the contest, win the stoppage. There is a few interesting matchups. Obviously, Sweet and Gawn, which we could go into if we didn't have another preview to do, but I am very interested for that matchup. And in that vein, I note that we've picked a pretty tall side again, keeping Van Wyck and Visentini in as the second ruck options. So that's very interesting. I think there's a bit of chat about Will Lorenz being a bit unlucky. So he's kind of in the realms of a Jackson Mead, who we spoke about. Just not sure where Will Lorenz is at. Not sure where his contract status is at either. Christian Moraes, unlucky for him. He needs to do more work. Funnily enough, though, like I said, he was our top score involvement player against Sydney. So I have a feeling that with Joe Richards coming back in, it kind of gives Jace Burgoyne that bit more attacking wing type setup. And they've clearly shown this year, the coaching group, that they like to have a true attacking wing and a defensive wing. And Jacob Ware, for the largest part of this season, has been that defensive wing option. And for me, they obviously see Lorenz and Moraes as, if they were to leave them in the side, probably more of an attacking wing option. But
I like some of what Ware did last week. yeah, I liked what Summer Ware did last week as well. So I actually think, I'm not unhappy with the fact that he's regained his spot. He's been a bit of a up and down player for fans this year for what they think of him. But I think based off of last week's effort, I think Ware actually did some nice things. And yeah, I'm happy with him staying in the side for that balance that you were speaking to, as well as to how they want to play.
Yeah. I mean, I can take the criticism on board that we see around there. Fans want to see impact. They want it to be obvious in front of them. Just, the casual fans or people who don't watch the match twice every week like we do and analyze the statistics and whatnot. But I think I've said it before in a devil's advocate kind of way with Jacob, where it was after the showdown, actually. He's clearly doing things the majority of the time that the coaches, are asking for or want to see. If they're not asking for it, that he's also contributing in a manner that they want to see out of their players as a whole, or more specifically, a player like him in his role. And that's why he's played a lot of games this season. Obviously, the selection troubles have probably assisted that a little bit for him, and credit to him for that. But again, to play devil's advocate, if you are tasked with a defensive wing role, you are typically lost guarding space, and things like that, and not really utilized a lot of the time. So, yeah, look, I'm not expecting big things out of him. I'm not expecting him to win me a game of footy, particularly this weekend, but he keeps his spot, and I hope he plays his role to the best of his abilities in that regard. So there was someone else I wanted to speak about, but and it obviously leaves Tommy Anastasopoulos in as well, which was another discussion point with fans around the teams being posted. So interesting. What's that, 4 games now for Tommy A in the season? So will he get another contract? Won't he get another contract? It is really interesting, but maybe he's there for a bit of forward mix. And we didn't really have any ins and outs. Although, yeah, we expected Georgiadis to come in for Van Wyck, and Bammett came in for Mead came in for Bammett, so that kind of works out in the wash too.
Yeah, and it really just looks like a side that is, we're at the back end of a season with lots of injuries, and they're kind of trying to find some balance whilst also trying to, just fill a side as well. And so some of those unusual, I think if you said at the start of the year to Josh Carr that in round 23 you're going to be playing 3 ruckmen, he would have just said, Nope, there would have been other options, but now he's just ended up there. And, through the experience of this year, I think he's found out a bit about these players as well. So there is some reason to it. It is funny as well, just objectively.
It is very funny.
Yeah, look, we'll be here on Tuesday to review that one, whatever may happen. And, of course, we'll be have another game to review as well. It's going to be a packed couple of episodes over the next couple of weeks. As we get to the real exciting stuff at this point of the year, with how everything's going on the men's side, the women's side is finally ready to get underway on Sunday afternoon. It is a 2:05 p.m. kickoff for us here watching in South Australia. Of course, if you happen to be in the West and going to the game, it is 12:35 for you guys over there. So get over there if you're the West. I know the Western Australian supporters always get around the Port teams when they're over there, so I'm sure we'll see them there. But yeah, we play Fremantle over in the West on Sunday afternoon. So whatever you're doing, make sure you're watching. And before we there's no ins and outs, so to speak, because it is the first game of the year, but we do have debutants, of course, for the side, with the guaranteed debutants, AFLW debutants, that is, in Sophie Eaton and Olivia Crane, a couple of our draft picks from last year, which I'm really excited to talk about what they can provide, because I think the team themselves are quite excited about them as well, particularly listening to Glenn Strachan talk about it today. But and Emily Elkington is making her club debut. That has been guaranteed by the selection as well, and how they've released that on social media. So otherwise, a very, very nice, strong lineup. We do have a couple of injuries. Sachi Syme, a favourite here at the Creedcast, is out for, I think, then Strawn said he's hopes she's back next week, but it is just a little niggle, I think, in the hamstring. Piper Window's out as well, and then of course Ellie Hampson, who was one of our high-profile recruits over the off-season, is out for a little while. Interestingly, listening to Strawn's press conference today, he intimated that Hampson was saying, I'm good to go, but some hip issue. So he's like, if it was her choice, she'd be playing. But like from how I understand it, she's going to be out for a few weeks. So so that's a few of the injury news there. Of course, the one of the major bits of news that dropped across the week as well. And the reason that Elkington has come into the side from being picked up as an injury replacement player a couple of days ago to being named in the side this week. It's a whirlwind week for her. She has been playing VFLW, so she's actually probably as prepared as anyone. But Caitlin Wendland, who was a favourite from a couple of years ago, obviously missed last year with an ACL, and she's been put to the inactive list to continue her recovery from ACL. So we've seen this with a few players across the journey, that there has been a few players that have had kind of 2-year recoveries from ACLs. As far as the AFLW season goes, obviously a shortened season and what they're looking for, and then just the recovery time for them as well. So that's sad because we loved Wendland in that first year. I think she herself was an injury replacement player originally, if I remember correctly. And she shot the lights out and we loved her. And then she got an ACL injury at the start of the last season. And so, yeah, that's why Elkington's in the side. So otherwise, a pretty strong lineup when you look at it line to line. One that I've got, obviously, we've got an extended squad at the moment, being that it is a Sunday game. I said to you off air, I look at the squad and the way the verbiage and the description of the side has been put onto Port Adelaide's website in the press release that they do for the side squad announcement, of course. I've put to you that Julia Teakle's been named in the side, but I don't think she's going to play.
Nor do I. Yeah, they have worded the selection article in a very interesting and perhaps suggestive way. If I may, for the listeners or viewers, it is stated as such. It's off the back end of mentioning Emily Elkington's club debut. And yeah, like you said, she does have a bit of experience playing VFLW, but also in the AFLW system. Mm-hmm. Her image on the AFLW team selection is still her in a West Coast jumper, funnily enough. Yep. But anyway, I digress. A fierce competitor with an ability to use the ball effectively, Elkington has been named on the interchange alongside experienced campaigners Molly Brooksby, Shanae Goody, Ella Bogue, and Maria Maloney. Fantastic bench, by the way. Mm-hmm. The power, and then full stop, period. Next line, the Powers extended bench also features potential debutante Grace Parsons, as well as club debutante Lucy Boyd and forward Julia Teakle. So yeah, it is really suggesting that Teaks may be left out. And like, quite honestly, looking at the team that has been named, it's looking pretty strong to me. I do obviously find it very interesting with the AFLW as it continues along its journey of development and raising the standard of itself, that Sophie Eaton and Olivia Crane are just straight in. Now that is also helped by Sachi Syme being injured, and I'm not entirely sure what role Ellie Hampson was kind of pegged to play, but perhaps aids their selection. But in saying that, it also goes to show how prepared perhaps these up-and-coming players through the drafting system, how prepared they are for AFLW football. Just continually raising the standard, because as we've discussed both years that we've done this so far together, the new players having that pathway from junior up through the ranks and having that development pathway is fueling the growth in the AFLW, and younger players are continually showing how further developed they are now than what we were looking at, 5, 8, 10 years ago for new players into the system, and how much that they can impact. We've seen it definitely in our regard. I mean, Matilda Schultz is a perfect example of that in recent years. Shanae Goody, for example. We've been hanging out for Lauren Young, and thankfully we get a season where Lauren Young can start and hopefully, just take the ball and run
Mhm.
and kick goals.
Yeah, yeah. Her goal song last year was "The Angels ever going to see your face again," which was very, very wonderful when she kicked her first goal at the Oval. So I'm hoping for more of that. Speaking of those young players, and like Strawn today in his press conference was really, really kind of excited about Aliir Crane in particular. Said that she's just really impressing. He said at like every session, basically, you just see improvement. And the recruits we got in the off season, and I'll talk about Strawn in a moment as well, because we haven't actually had a chance to talk too much about the coaching change on this podcast. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But I wanted to get to kind of these debutantes of ours, because Sophie Eaton comes in, and she's a South Australian playing Central Districts the last couple of years. Played obviously representative footy at the South Australian level as well, and is a really highly touted recruit, draftee, and we picked her up, I think, at pick 17 last year. One of those young players, I think she's 19, good run and carry, good decision making. She's got and watching just a little bit of one of those little 5-minute video highlights packages, which still only give you a snapshot and obviously edited, but you still just get an idea of how she gets. She's got good delivery of the ball, got good speed, good pick up as well. So one of those players, like you said, that has just kind of having come through the system of, being 19 now means that she was, 8 years old when the AFLW kicked off. So she had a pathway through, which we've talked about time and time again, is just so important for these players coming through. It's funny, her rookie central draft profile lists her as a mid forward. She's actually been named in the back line. She did play a bit about, I can't remember if it was particularly in the representative side last year or what it was, but she did play a little bit of defense last year, and particularly her ball use and ability to run and carry a little bit out of defense could be useful for a side like us that are needing to keep continually improving that way. I think we have improved in that way, of course, across the last couple of years. But her being named down there is interesting, and I'm looking forward to watching her down there. And Aliir Crane, again, like I said, Glenn Strawn was very, very just glowing about her in his press conference today. She's she's one of the strengths of her, and so both in her rookie central profile, as well as watching some of the tape on her, is her ability. They say that she's really smart footballer and reads the play well. So part of her talent is her ability to kind of read where the ball, read the ball, fly to the ball quicker than anyone else and get to the position. I've always talked about this as like, smart footballers sometimes don't need speed when they can get to the ball, and the fall of the ball quicker than anyone else can, because they can just read it better. Intercept marking really good. The tape was really impressive in that that aspect. Great clean hands, and a decent delivery as well. I think she's a left footer as well, which is nice. So, yeah, young player obviously coming in as well, but looking forward to seeing her. So a couple of promising debutantes, and really, really exciting to see them come in. I think I said to you in the last couple of weeks, it is really interesting that we, as a side that has built up such a good crop of young talent, ironically, do not hold either of our first 2 draft picks in the history of this league. Our first, of course, first draft in AFLW was 2022, and we took Hannah Ewings and Sarah Goodwin with their first 2 ever draft picks, and they're both Crows now. And yet we've still, through the machinations of how list building worked in the AFLW, which we won't go through that in depth right now because there was priority signings and all those kind of things, but you can look into it if you need to. We've still been able to build a good list, despite the fact that objectively you can say, as far as their impact for us, beyond the rising star for Hannah Ewings, for longevity, our first 2 draft picks were busts as far as how they impact on Port Adelaide long term, because we don't have them anymore. But we've still built a very, very good side, and these 2 young draft picks are very, very exciting. Of course, you did mention Elkington. Strawny was talking about. I'm going to start calling him Strawny, and I'm going to start.
We all will.
Yeah.
We all will. Just go with it. Just go with it.
Yeah, just let it go. Just go with the flow. He was talking about Elkington's ability to tackle, really like averaging 9 tackles a game down in the VFLW as kind of a small forward in her season thus far. So, good, exciting young forward still. And good pressure. So exciting to see her come in, and obviously she's only become a Port Adelaide player about 3 days ago. So what a whirlwind week for her, but she gets to make her debut. So just wanted to touch on those 3 in particular, because they are the new ones to our side, and just give a little bit of reason to be excited about particularly the draft picks coming in, but even Elkington. I'm looking forward to seeing what she's going to provide as well.
It feels good to be excited again as a Port Adelaide fan. um, Obviously, love the men's side, love the entire Port Adelaide Football Club. Excited for players like Van Wyck and Bam Bam Bammett and things like that who have come into the system in trying circumstances. But yeah, it feels good to have a clean slate with the AFLW amongst us upcoming. And yeah, Olivia Crane, also an interesting one, being a Perth girl. So she gets to make her debut in her hometown, so to speak, but a Port Adelaide supporter. So I love that aspect of it too, when she was drafted and obviously got, I think, the draft night Guernsey for photos being taken. Yeah. Like, what an excellent little tidbit to being drafted, because the AFLW in a lot of the years up until just recently having those state-based drafts, and it's been a national draft over the last 2 or 3 seasons. But yeah, when you're recruiting from interstate and they're a Port Adelaide supporter, it's a pretty good leg up, particularly when they are talented like she is, and that intercept marking, like you mentioned, was a key feature of her profile. So very interested to see that come about. You've just touched on the new. I figured, again, because we haven't really discussed a lot of this preseason activity due to time, of course, and we would have loved to, had things been different. But on the other end of things, we've obviously got Justine Mills-Robinson being appointed captain again, and the leadership group around her. So Emily Borg and Sachi Sama, the vice captains. Disappointing for Sachi not to be able to play. But funnily enough, also started on a half forward with your sentiments with Sophie Eaton, and she's really relished and grabbed the half back role with both hands. So yeah, disappointed that she can't play the start of the season, but hopefully back next week, if not the week after. And then obviously Maria Maloney, Julia Teakle in the leadership group. So again, interesting how that selection will go once final teams are lodged Friday evening. And Ella Heads is in the leadership group. When I found out that news, I gave a big fist pump and a fuck yeah. Ella Heads obviously featured a lot in our discussions last year, featured a lot in our gameplay last year. And to give myself a pat on the back, if I may, opened up the discussion last year that I kind of saw leadership, future captain type qualities, because she is quite young. So we ended up kind of touching on that on multiple occasions in last year's AFLW reviews, just the way that she carries herself mostly on the field and how she impacts in a lot of games, particularly earlier in the season when we were struggling to get going, just the difference in cleanliness and impact, her handling of the ball, marking in her own ability, which was a key kind of feature coming off the back of the 2024 season. So yeah, super proud as a supporter to see her get included in the leadership group, because it just continues on a pathway that I think that she's on and hope that she's on with the Port Adelaide Football Club.
Yeah, no, it's a very, very good point to bring up. I think she's like her recruitment, and I think she's a Sydney girl as well. So the fact that she took the opportunity to actually move interstate and take this challenge on, and she hit the ground running. Like as you said, she was actually a real feature. Obviously grew and was a really, really great part of the side once we started playing better footy. But when we weren't playing great footy at times at the start of the year, or frustrating footy as it may have been, she was still a highlight feature of the side in that time. So, she's going to, and her footy, like many, is only going to get better as this season goes on as well, I believe. And yeah, as you said, it's a strong side that's named. Well, before we get to the side in general and just our thoughts on the game itself, I did say we should touch on Strawny a little bit here as well, because we do, of course, have a new head coach. And I want to just a quick moment to actually say as well, a big thank you to Lauren Arnell. I think she needs to, at some point will take her place, or already should be revered at the Port Adelaide Football Club for leading us through the first 4 years of Port Adelaide women's footy. and in particular, taking on the journey of a side that was clearly built to build from youth, and obviously was going to struggle to start with. And she took that challenge on with both hands, and really having just come out of a playing career as well. Led a young side through, led us to some moments of history, of whether it be our first win, the first goals for different players, but then leading us through to our first final series, some great finals wins and memories in that season. But then even the last few months of her time as coach of the club, that end to the season last year was really, really impressive. I think actually the best football we've ever played was in the last few months of Lauren Arnell's coaching tenure, even better than the finals performances. I think just as the context of the games, I think I said that in the reviews last year. Our first showdown win as well, and of course the record-breaking times of Indy Tahoe and Gemma Houghton, all under Lauren Arnell's tutelage. So just a quick moment for her, I think, Jamie, is just to acknowledge her. And great, she's gone into a great commentary career, by the way, really enjoying her content on that front, but forever should be revered as, even if she didn't get the accolades of, premierships or anything like that, she took on a challenge, and her imprint on this side will go through long-term, I think.
Echo your thoughts wholeheartedly. Much like the journey of Port Adelaide in the AFLW from a fan's perspective, it's rare that you get to be the first of something like this in the modern age and modern age of football. So as fans, to be foundation members and go on the journey from the beginning is quite a proud thing for me. But then, like you mentioned, Lauren Arnell, she will always be the first coach of the Port Adelaide Football Club's AFLW program. And she had us tracking in the right direction. To say I was shocked at the news that she was stepping away is an understatement. It would have to have been one of the hardest decisions that she's ever made in her life, particularly with where this group is set to be and go, like the journey that they're about to go on, as we touch wood and hope that trajectory is continuing in an upward fashion. I couldn't believe it, to be honest, initially. We all have our reasons for changing occupations or whatnot, make changes in our personal life. And knowing, like you said, how well we finished season 2025, unfortunately missing out on finals due to our slow start, but how well we were functioning as a football team and what that outlook suggested for the future would have had to have been tough. So, full credit to her for setting up our football club from a senior coaching point of view. And all the best to her in her future endeavors. She always carried herself well in press conferences and interviews. So, like you said, it's no surprise why she's gone into commentary and why she'll do really well in that role.
Absolutely, yeah. That did bring in obviously the opportunity for Glenn Strawn to be appointed the senior coach of our AFLW side. So, and just a quick bio for those that may not be too aware of where he's come from, but he's got a 10-year playing career in the VFL, Collingwood VFL for a couple of years from 2013 through to 2014. He was then at Carlton VFL program for 5 years, and he was vice captain there as well. He finished off his time in the VFL at the Northern Bull Ants in 2021 before he immediately went into coaching and has basically been in the Carlton program in various roles since 2022. The first couple of years, Carlton VFL development coach. 2024, he was the actual Carlton VFLW senior coach. So he's got some senior coaching experience at the VFLW level, which is important. And then from that point on, he immediately went into being a senior assistant at the Carlton AFLW program for the last couple of years, obviously, before we poached him and brought him across to the beautiful climes of South Australia to begin his AFLW senior coaching journey. Some of the things he's mentioned this is just the bio from the Port Adelaide website, so you can all read it if you want. But he's built a strong reputation for his football IQ, clear communication of feedback, and his ability to help players implement meaningful improvements in their game. Yeah, and I think he has a degree in applied science and physical education as well. So he's got done some education on himself. Obviously, got a playing career that he can draw from as well, and then a fair bit of coaching experience there already. So, and just listening to the way he talks already, very very passionate guy about the football. Very passionate about his players. Had a lot of good words to say about Matilda Scholes and her journey today, as she's obviously been a very high profile player in the AFLW as well, possibly the most highest profile possibly at this point, being in the Women's Health magazine and just talking about. So it sounds like he can communicate with all the players, and obviously we're hoping that he can continue the journey that Lauren and Nell put us on.
Very interesting. Off the back end of my sentiments about Lauren Young, obviously knowing the position that our players and football team were in, the squad we're in, coming off the finish of last year's season, putting a new coach into the mix could potentially pose a bit of a rocking of the balance. So it's very intriguing. I love what the messaging has been from him, and it seems that he's come in, been cognizant to the fact that we're a very good contested side. We obviously, for Lauren Arnell, got Lauren Young on the mind because I want her to do well, and I'm halfway through a large glass of Grant Birch Midnight Ink. But Lauren Arnell, so
yes.
Yeah, cut and paste that to my previous naming. But she set the team up to be very offensive. Figured that with an inexperienced side, if we could be contested and play the Port Adelaide way from that point of view, from a tackling and contest point of view, but surge the ball forward, would give that iteration of the AFLW side its best chance to impact on a game of football and take it to the opposition. And we saw how that evolved over the several years that she was in charge. And now he's wanting to add a bit more defensive accountability. So I'm very intrigued to see how that translates. As again, I thought, although we were a very offensively minded side last season, I thought as we got into our work, progressively our team defense got better along the way as the girls built in confidence. So hopefully that means that any kind of tweaks or changes to the game plan that he wants to make are complementary to what we've kind of laid down in the recent years that we were. I will admit that our offensive gameplay, particularly when we weren't playing at our best, was quite predictable at times. That St Kilda game comes to mind last year, where unfortunately they ran over the top of us to a record level. They bridged that gap. So yeah, if he can come in, obviously develop good relationships with the players, like it seems that he has in his time thus far, and just add that extra layer that makes a football side more competitive for longer, then I have high hopes for the season.
Yeah, and he's coming into a side that has, some good experience down that back line for him to build off of, and then he's obviously brought in a couple of debutants there as well, so it's really interesting. Obviously, even like Molly Brooksby's like one that we've loved coming off of halfback as well, and she's on the bench there, so there's some depth for him to work with in that defensive to offensive transition kind of game plan. And look, transitioning to kind of talking about the game for the last 10, 15 minutes here, The one chance I've had to see us in preseason was actually going to when we played Fremantle, which is interesting because they're our first opponent. But it was the week that obviously the AFL men's side played Fremantle. Fremantle also flew over their women's side for a little, scratchy trial match against the women's side that morning. So I was able to go down and watch 3/4 of that before I ventured to Adelaide Oval for the men's side. Which was an interesting one. I think we went down ultimately. I didn't actually see the end score exactly. And obviously with trial matches that are kind of somewhat unofficial, there wasn't too much information out about it, stats-wise or anything like that, which I find frustrating. I'd love it to be a little bit better on that front. But anyway, I think when I was at the Sandful last weekend, I saw someone in a Champion Data shirt and I wanted to just pin him up against the wall and just be like, give me everything you have. But yeah, I liked, so there were some things, our ball movement and our crispness of kicking, there's a clear improvement in our disposal and a kick mark game and all of that stuff. I think I texted you something along the lines of I've seen more marks in a half here than I saw in some of our games in those first couple of years. And we had some good dominance at times, but then the one thing that still was a concern just out of that viewing of that game, and again, it was just a trial match, and I will mention a couple of mitigating factors here in a moment. It was just once we got to, we were able to move the ball reasonably well from back 50 to the forward 50 line, but then getting from forward 50 to inside 30 or anything like that for a decent shot at goal was a real struggle. We really struggled to score, and it was a low scoring trial match as it was, but then, it was kind of like Fremantle then would get their moments of dominance and just get a little bit more luck down forward. So that's still going to be maybe the one issue, and that's obviously last year we had some great goal scoring from some great goal scorers, but so we had some moments, but in those times when the football wasn't working as well for us is when we struggled to bridge those gaps and score. So that'd be the interesting factor. Of course, in that trial match, there were some big names missing. Key to them was Matilda Scholes was missing, and I remember texting Jamie on the day once I got to the Port Adelaide men's game and telling him that I was at the game at the women's trial and said, Matilda's not playing. I guess they held her out. And then I got to the men's game and heard her on the mic doing the emceeing with Jared Walsh and Rosie Panetta and went, of fucking course. She's got another job here. So she was just emceeing and she was fine. She's obviously played the international game against Ireland and gotten through that unscathed and is named. So she was, and Gemma Houghton wasn't playing. There was a few others missing from that game as well. They did hold a fair few senior players out of that one. A fair few did play as well, but I think there was a few that didn't play. So Matilda Scholes obviously is just key to everything with our side and how it's built. She is a unicorn of a player and obviously we're looking at AFLW previews from the AFL.com team and whatnot. There's a few that have named her as their pick for possibly the best and fairest this year. I don't know if she's quite at that level yet, but she is that impactful that if she plays a full season and does Matilda Scholes things, then she's going to be every chance of being right up there in AFLW best and fairest talks. But yeah, it's kind of she's such a key cog in this side. And so in what was a close loss in that trial match, you bring Matilda Scholes and Gemma Houghton in, then, you don't know, you never know. But we haven't shot the lights out in any of the trial matches, the 4 trial matches either, but we haven't been blown out either. They've been close matches. I think we had a close one against Melbourne, which Melbourne just had a very, very good win in their match against Hawthorn, a fellow final side from last year. So we've been playing some decent competitive footy. It's going to be just about the connective tissue stuff in coming into this game, but I'm hopeful, and we've got a very, very strong lineup out there. So if that kind of defensive solidarity, and we can get a few chances down forward and get some of those, the Gemma Houghton's going to be such a key part of that. The structure down there, I think she scored 3 against Melbourne. Yeah, sorry, I'm long-winded rambling a little bit here, actually. I just realised, because just looking at the team squad, I've got so many thoughts. But how are you feeling about this one, Jamie? Because I haven't been obviously buoyed with enthusiasm from the preseason, not in a negative way either. It's just it has been some tough, scrappy, contested matches, and we haven't had one of those big preseason wins that makes you go, we're winning a flag now. But sometimes that's not what you want either, because we've had that. We've seen that in the men's side plenty of times, and it's just, it's fool's gold, so to speak. So they've been tough and competitive in preseason, and hopefully they can take it in. And because it's going to be really, really important if we can go over to Freo and get a win, it's just going to platform the season so well, because in a 12-game season, it's really important to get the wins where you can, particularly away games where you can maybe see yourself as similarly matched with the side. And we see how much a loss against Freo at the start of last season at home kind of just put us behind the eight, like not behind the eight ball, but just, behind so early. So if we can go over there and get a win, it would really platform the season quite well.
Sorry, can you just repeat all of that?
Now I want to do. I need the GIF of like where someone like rolls out a scroll and it just goes rolling through the next fucking room.
I just on your point about Matilda Schultz before, isn't the world her oyster at the moment? Oh my gosh, she's just ticking boxes for herself, left, right, and center. Obviously, the international game that we spoke about briefly in what was it, last week's review? Yeah, in recent weeks anyway. Women's health cover, the a multitude of social media gigs and I think if she puts together a season that she's capable of, she's more than a shout for the AFLW best and fairest. So fucking have loved her work since day dot, and I would definitely not be on an island in that regard. She's just a fantastic contributor. It is interesting, though, coming up against Fremantle first up. Obviously, your lovely wife, Andrea, was down for our first game of the season last year, that one being at Alberton, of course, and we watched a game where, frustratingly enough, we thought that we held momentum for large periods of the game, but we just couldn't put it on the scoreboard. Funnily enough, finishing the season as a offensively wired team, but in that game in particular, it was just frustrating. It was agonizing. Just the standard kind of get it at a wing, dump kick to a half forward line, and then inevitably getting rebounded, and Fremantle did well to score off the back of that and break our back. They've also named a decent side, and just to go back on Matilda Schultz, that's going to be one of the biggest matchups of this match and of the round as a whole. I would suggest coming up against Mim Strom. It's weird how the AFL website they've listed Gabrielle Newton, who's a midfielder, as the ruck competing against Matilda Schultz, and Mim Strom matching up against Kirsty Lamb. That's not going to happen apart from general play. Mim Strom, who was the first choice ruck for the Australia side, coming up against Ireland recently, Matilda Schultz being the second ruck option. So it'll be interesting to see if Matilda has learnt a thing or two in the training camps that they had for that. Alternatively, it could backfire and go the other way too. One of the good matchups, obviously, in last year's fixture as well, and Fremantle as a whole, like I think I mentioned, they've named a strong side. In our matchup last year, the likes of Kiara Bowers, Mim Strom, Gabrielle Newton, Hayley Miller were four of the top six AFL fantasy player rated people, if you can take that. For new listeners, the statistical lines in AFLW aren't as prevalent as they are in the men's competition, so we are limited to an extent in our abilities to analyze. Just from a AFL fantasy point of view, Fremantle had four of the top six represented players, and they're all listed in this side coming up for Sunday. Dana East was their fifth best on ground, but I can't see her without going through the whole list though. That fact of the matter is they've got some genuine gun players who are all named in their side of things, and it is on their home patch. So it will be interesting to see how we go. The preseason matches were interesting because, as Strawny said, Coach Strawn, from our side of things, we've been trialing players in maybe slightly different positions, like you mentioned, but also managing loads of players, because including those 4 match sims and the season, it's longer than any season previously. So just keeping players out, such as Matilda Schultz in that one game, and Gemma Houghton, like you said, playing younger players. I would suggest that Fremantle would have probably done a similar thing. So yeah, in our matchup, it was close, but no cigar. But geez, if we can bring the intensity that we largely embodied in our round one fixture from 2025, but we add the polish that I hope we've developed over the 11 weeks after that game and then the preseason, with an Indy Tahoe, a Gemma Houghton, and hopefully the kind of third head to the monster, Lauren Young, hopefully getting into her work. Actually talking about Lauren Young now, not Lauren Hardell. It's quite a formidable forward line with the likes of Caitlin Pope, who we both lauded last year for her impact per possession. Doesn't typically get a lot of the football, but when she does, she generally makes it count. Justine Mills-Robinson, a lot of our discussions in regards to her last year was when we weren't playing well. Her impact was limited, and she was kind of being forced to come up the ground to make some sort of an impact. But when we were on song and getting her involved in the game as a half-forward flanker, it lifted the morale of the side, or so it seemed. So it's quite a formidable forward line that we're kicking to, obviously with the likes of Schultz being able to rotate through there, Woodland being able to rotate through there, continuing in her midfield journey. So bring the contest, attack hard, and hopefully we can put a score on the board that's going to get us over the line this time around.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like to finish off on a kind of point about maybe just about the ethos of the side and what maybe the Strawn system may bring. One of the things we've lamented maybe in the last few years is that we just haven't had a player that consistently goes maybe not 18 to 20 disposals, maybe 23 to 27 or something. I'm trying to, bring to AFLW numbers. You've had Derek have good games. You've had Woodland and Woodland increasingly last year. And considering Woodland's come in and Stoney started playing full-time midfield last year. But if our system, whatever the system may be, keeps some attacking prowess but starts getting a little bit more control from the back end, and we start seeing one of these players, and we start seeing, because we've seen other teams, obviously your Jazzy Garners, your Ed Marinoffs and co in different teams, we do see some high possession numbers from other players. You want to find, I don't think we can be a top four. I don't know whether or not we're a top 4 team this year or next year. That remains. That's neither here nor there. But we need to start seeing some of these players, because we had a lot of games last year. It was like the top disposals was 2021, and sometimes it wasn't even that. And so we're not getting enough ball in hands of the ball users, and that kind of speaks to your idea of the game plan that we would understandably using in Surge, and we didn't have complete control. But if we are going to take that next step, we need to get a little bit more control, which naturally then means some players will get more disposals. And I'll be interested to see who that one is. The hierarchy of who the ball goes through sometimes just develops naturally. And obviously Derek's been a good ball winner over the years. Woodland had some high disposal games last year as well when she had really got into her work. So that'll be interesting to see how she develops her role, having now had a full season of experience and another preseason in that role as well. So the midfield mix is really interesting to me as well. Obviously, I found it funny. You were talking about how they wrote the thing about experienced campaigners on the bench and the likes of Sinead Goody and Molly Brooksby and Ella Bogue. And I'm like, they're fucking like 21, 22. But they've been playing football for so long already for us, it feels like. They are still very, very young footballers with a lot of development ahead of them. So I wanted to bring that up and bring it back to that, because I think it's worth noting that they have got a lot of experience in their short careers, but they also do have a lot of room for growth. So Sinead Goody, again, she's shown propensity for ball winning when she gets utilised the right way, but she's still young and, hierarchy of midfield and whatnot. So how she's used over the next couple of years will be interesting, but she's shown a propensity for both good ball use and good ball winning and ability to accumulate. I think she got caught holding the ball at least once a week last year, so that was kind of a similar, maybe a Kristen Moraes or Joe Berry style, like just enthusiasm to take the game on. It's just like, you'll learn. So Sinead Goody's another one to watch this year. But yeah, there's a lot of midfield kind of who's going to take that mantle if we do start controlling the game a little bit more, which we do want to. Who's going to take that mantle of being the midfield queen, so to speak? But I hope they all do, to be fair. But it's just going to be interesting to see who develops into that role. Like I said, you're not wanting to compare to other teams, but we do see the other teams that are consistently play deep into finals and play good finals football year to year, have a player that can accumulate more ball, and we're going to need to find that in as we develop this year. I hope, just as we finish off here, I hope we do make finals again this year. I'll say my prediction is that we're not probably going to be a top 4 team, but I just do hope we make finals again. I'd love to do that for the team. I won't be shouting down the putting a drawn out sign on the Port Road sign or anything like that if we don't, because I think the AFLW is really interesting going into its 11th year. You've got a lot of teams that are developing at pace. It's like an arms race. It's like 1900 to 1913. There's a lot of teams that are developing very, very quickly. And shout out to those that have listened for a long time, and David wanting to bring in his little war references. But so don't be surprised. Like I don't want to have people judge Port Adelaide by just simply because, some teams develop really quickly. Some teams kind of develop incrementally. We've had this really incremental approach. So if we incrementally get to, just at the bottom of the finals pack, but if we finish just outside of it, and because that's how tight it is, I won't panic too much. But I do hope we do make finals, is my point. But I'm not expecting a top 4 quality side at this point yet either. And just on this week, with it being so unknown, I'm just hoping we go over and give a good account of ourselves. And I'd love to see us get like a 8 to 10 point win and really have a gritty start the season with an away win and really set the platform the season well. So I've given you 2 things, 2 thought bubbles there for you to finish off on here.
Yeah, I look at the Port Adelaide Football Club, the AFLW football team, and we made finals in 2024. And I look at the team that we have now, while cognizant of the fact, and you've raised a good point, it is a bit of an arms race. Every team is developing at a rapid rate. Rapid in the context of AFLW, of course. And we're no different. We kind of have a bit of tunnel vision because Port Adelaide Football Club is all that we care about. But I look at the team that we have now and the team that made the final series in 2024, and I think we're better. And just to kind of remind AFLW fans, it is still a top 8 system in the AFLW. There's no wildcard fixtures there yet. So yeah,
bring me the wild card. I'm a wild card believer, so bring me the wild card now.
Last year we would have been a wild card. I can't even remember where we finished last year. It didn't matter really because we were if we won by some exponential amount against GWS, and then we could have slipped in on percentage because the other machinations actually worked out for us. That's right, which seemed far-fetched at the time.
we were 6.7 percentage points away from finishing 8th because West Coast finished 8th. It was basically, there was a four-team logjam from 8th through 11th. 11th was Fremantle, of teams that won 6 and lost 6. So, and 3 of our wins came against top 8 sides last year. So it kind of shows that one of them against the top 4 side in Hawthorn.
Yeah, of course. And like you said at the time, one of, if not the best game of AFLW football that the Port Adelaide Football Club has played. Even better than the semi-final that we won. Yeah.
Still one of my favourite memories of the last couple of years of Port Adelaide football, as far as men's and women's, was that Hawthorn game. I just adored the effort we put out there. Being there for it was wonderful. And I just genuinely think that some of the best football we've played was in that last month of last season. Even comparing it. Sorry, I have a lot of great memory for that little period of time of AFLW, and really a lot of pride in what we found out about ourselves in that time.
And this is what being on a journey is about. You suffer the lows, but you get to enjoy the highs. An extra layer to that in an AFLW sense is you get to enjoy and experience the development of this burgeoning league that has been going for over a decade now. But But yeah, so you mentioned arms race, you mentioned every team's developing. You hope that the trajectory continues upwards. But, we made the finals in 2024, but we've had the dip. We were expected to kind of push on last year. We kind of went backwards due to a slow start, which Glenn Strawn touched on also in his press conference, that because there's only 12 games, the early games kind of count. Every game counts for more when you compare it to a men's season, but getting wins early sets you up fantastically well. So I'm hoping that we've had the dip and now we slingshot ourselves back up because, I think we're a better team than we were 2 years ago overall. And I think we should be aiming for 5th to 8th. If we play good enough, like you said, we beat Hawthorn very convincingly last year. So if we're good enough, and it was a prelim final that we played in 2024. So gather the momentum, gather the form, and top 4 isn't out of the realms of possibility, but I think fairly and squarely we should be aiming for top 5 to 8. Now, in regards to this weekend, I also echo your sentiments. Off the back of what I mentioned before, I hope we go hard in the contest, but I hope we have an avenue forward because I think we can hold up defensively, funnily enough. Just with the likes of Emily Borg, Tegan Jermack, Creedcast favourite Ebony O'Day all still being there. Molly Brooksby obviously also still being there. And look, if things get a bit shaky, it will be interesting to see if Strawn pulls the lever and Tahoe can go back. But I think a couple of goals is a realistic, not necessarily expectation, but a realistic outcome that could happen. And I'm hoping that we've checked all the boxes that we need to in preseason and we're ready to go. And we've learnt our lessons from last season's start to the year. So go Port. Let's bring it home. A very valuable away win for a young group.
It'll be the perfect way to kick off the season. Would be get for that young group to get that kind of win, that satiation and reward for effort that they've had at the back end of last year and going into this preseason, obviously. Just a reminder, obviously for us watching in South Australia, it is a 2:05 p.m. kickoff, but if you're in the West, 12:35 p.m. And I just want to put it on the radar for everyone as well that it is. And I think this was a fixture that got changed in time. So if you're looking at fixtures from earlier in the year when fixtures were announced, the game time now for our first home game of the AFLW season is 4:50 p.m. on Sunday, the 23rd of August. So next, a week from the first opening round game. So put it in your calendars now. I think Jamie and I have spoken at length and we'll probably do more on the preview next week. But AFLW game days at Alberton are fucking unparalleled. They're wonderful. It's a great atmosphere. It's wonderful to see AFL football at, in God's country. And you got to get around these girls and support them. And Hawthorn is a team that has been right up there in the last couple of years. Obviously, we've just talked about, got one of our very famous wins against them last year. They've just had a season opening loss to Melbourne, but it was a good game for there for a while. Put it on your radar that our first home game of the year is 4:50 p.m. Sunday the 23rd. But hopefully we're going into that with a 1-0 record after a win this Sunday over Freo. So Khan, the fucking male pair, Khan, the lady pair, let's all have a good weekend enjoying this football team, and we'll be back for what will be a packed review episode on Tuesday next week because we'll be in the weeds of this sports equinox, the Port Adelaide equinox that is reviewing 2 games in 1 week.
Go all the pairs, and to everyone listening or watching, have a fantastic weekend. We'll see you here next week.